This post-mortem by field designer and technical art director of Call of Duty Fire, Modern Warfare first appeared in the March 20, 08 issue of Game Developer magazine. Call of Duty Fire was Infinity Ward's third Call of Duty game, and as such we approached it knowing we needed to do something fresh. We do not want to pigeonhole ourselves any more than we have to, and many members of the team came off Call of Duty to promising never to work on another relay game. We tried several different directions, many of which were failures, but the ultimate result was the best game any of us have ever worked on. As a game development experience, it seemed to go so smoothly that it was difficult to come up with 5 things that went wrong. Coming off Call of Duty 2, we knew we wanted to do something different for our next game. We do not agree with some critics who say that relay as a genre is dead, but we could not master the same passion for the subject that we had in our first 3 relay games, Call of Duty 1 and 2 and Medal of Honor, Allied Assault. We had a few ideas that we wanted to do and eventually settled on 2. One was Modern Warfare, and the other was a new project. Modern Day Warfare is very emotional for people, which is both good and bad. We really wanted to avoid referencing any current real wars, and one aspect of the gameplay that we really did not want to change from previous titles was the idea of 2 arch-opposing forces with similar numbers and technology. To facilitate that, we invented a war with several fronts, primarily involving a group splintered from the Russian army, with a secondary front in the Middle East. The modern setting inspires an enormous amount of gameplay variety. Modern Warfare is very different from more traditional warfare, in that direct confrontations between huge armies are relatively rare. Instead, you have a huge variety of different types of low-intensity conflicts and special forces missions. Because we already had a very sophisticated scripting language in our engine, we were able to implement and iterate on that variety quickly, and take advantage of the modern setting to shake up the gameplay, but still deliver a polished result. Modern weapons and tech are something that people like to see and play with. Kids the world over grow up fantasizing about being a soldier, and we aim to let adults live out their childhood fantasies. Call of Duty Fire is rated M, but we also knew we wanted to keep that signature Call of Duty grittiness, and avoid making the game feel too touchy. One thing that helped us there was focusing the U.S. part of the game on Marines, who get a lot of their equipment second-hand from the army. By moving away from history and into the current day, we were able to do much more useful reference gathering. For example, the effect that happens when you are near an Abrams tank when it fires was inspired by our designers, artists, and sound designers' experiences at a live fire exercise at 29 Palms, which is a marine training facility in the California desert. We were able to talk to real Marines, only weeks out of combat, to get a feel for the background, emotions and attitude of soldiers in combat, and we had us supervising our mocap and eye design, to make sure our tactics were sound. At the beginning of Call of Duty Fire, looking at what we had done with the Call of Duty 2, we saw 2 main areas we needed to focus on improving. First, by dedicating more development time to multiplayer, we felt we could make some really big improvements. Second, we knew we needed to tell a story. Call of Duty Fire is our first game where we had a team working on multiplayer for the entire project. The quality bar for single-player first-person shooters is really high right now, but there were and still are a lot of things that no one has really tried to do with multiplayer, and based on the success of the multiplayer in our previous games, we thought we could really impress. With a seasoned lab and some dedicated designers and programmers, Modern Warfare multiplayer was much more ambitious, much more polished, and generally much better than ever before. Story is something we have always put a little effort into, but by and large we have prioritized it below other aspects of our games, moving away from we and into a fictional war removed that option. We spent hours brainstorming with military advisors, trying to come up with a credible scenario that would involve a large-scale war, and then weeks interviewing writers trying to find someone who could help us craft a narrative that would draw the player in. The result, while not Shakespearean, has drawn almost universal praise. We feel like we have a new skill, and we intend to build on it in other future projects. Low turnover is Infinity War's secret weapon. You can throw all the money, top talent, outsourcing, mocap, and high-end middleware you want at a project. But without a team that knows how to work together, you will only end up with delays and a fragmented product. We'll still have 20 of the 27 or so developers who worked on Light Assault 6 years ago, so our team has a remarkably stable base. Before we started on Call of Duty 4, we spent 2 years developing and using our new engine on PC, on X360, and 2 years before those using parts of it, notably the scripting system and the level editor, on Call of Duty 1 on PC. By retaining almost all of our people, we retained almost all of that experience. We were able to leap right into development on Modern Warfare, improving the engine, creating art assets, and building levels immediately. Our leads were able to work directly on game content, rather than spend all their time wrangling a team of new people. We were very lucky, or smart, depending on who you ask, to have a team that had built a game on this generation of hardware. Before, our engine already worked on the 360 and PC, and we already had 360 dev kits and tools that worked on them. We knew what performance to expect and had a good idea of how to optimize our assets for the hardware. The PlayStation 3 and X360 have similar graphical capabilities, which meant that almost all the experience our artists had on the 360 on the last project was directly applicable to both consoles this project. While PCs are always changing, they did not change so much in the 2 years since Call of Duty. To that we had to relearn anything. We just made improvements to our technique. Relating to the previous point, we did not need to hire many new people. We had staffed up dramatically for our first X-Gen game, but starting Call of Duty 4 we already had the team in place, and they already know how to use our engine and tools. By building on what we already had, we were able to reach higher in 2 years than if we'd been forced to start from scratch. This goes not only for engine features, but also for tools and content too. By the end of the project, we've had replaced almost all the content carried over from Call of Duty 2, but having it available during development removed bottlenecks and allowed us to work faster. From the point of view of our artists and designers, the PlayStation 3 and X360 have very similar abilities, so we could share assets between them. PC is a broad target, and at this stage in the console life cycle, the consoles still have similar performance to mid-high-end PCs, so we could share assets there. Too. Of the thousands of assets in the game, only a few dozen are platform-specific, working with an engine that already runs on all the target platforms, and keeping it running on all those platforms during development is far easier than trying to port it near the end, while the end result on the two consoles is almost identical. The innards are dramatically different in many cases. On the PC, the differences are obvious. Depending on the specs of the PC or the user's choice, the game can run at one of dozens of different resolutions, with different texture and model detail settings, different control schemes, and different graphics hardware and drivers. Adding the functionality to allow the user to choose between those settings at the end of the project, while simultaneously trying to finalize the game on other platforms, would have been impossible. Naturally enough, early in the development of Call of Duty, we were trying to take what worked for World War II and move it into the modern era.